Hello, welcome back to my channel. I am Heather Tiemann. I'm a realtor down here in the beautiful Lexington, Columbia area of South Carolina. And today we are going to be talking about Lexington or Chapin. Let's see which one may be a better fit for you. But before we get started, you know what I'm going to ask? If you could please like and subscribe to my channel. We hit our 550 subscribers. So I hit my goal for 2025. I wonder if we can get to 600 by the end of 2025. That would be amazing. I'd really appreciate it, and I really appreciate all the love and support, you guys. And if you are considering a move to Lexington, Irmo, or Chapin, check out our Moving to Lexington, Moving to Irmo, or Moving to Chapin Facebook groups. You can find them over on Facebook, obviously. Just type in Moving to Lexington, South Carolina, Moving to Irmo, South Carolina, or Moving to Chapin, South Carolina, and they'll pop right up. You can even type it into Google and will pop up as well. So, yay, SEO. But let's hop on into this. So when people are looking to move to next to Lake Murray, two names pop up. Ooh, my goodness, I cannot talk today. When people are looking to move close to Lake Murray, two names pop up almost always: Lexington and Chapin. Both are great, but which one is a right fit for you? Kind of let's break that down a little bit. Because Lexington and Chapin, while they pop up all the time, they are very, very different from each other. And because they're very different from each other, they are not going to be the right fit for everybody. So Lexington may be a good fit for some, while Chapin may be a good fit for others, but you got to figure out which one is going to be a better fit for you and your family. So let's start with location and commute times. Chapin is going to be further from downtown Columbia, so expect a lot longer commute time, probably depending on where you live in Chapin. Now, this will vastly depend on where you live in Chapin. But I would expect anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, just depending on traffic. The further into Chapin you are, obviously the longer your commute time will be. But if you're, closer to the border of Chapin and Irmo, then your commute time may be a little bit less. But definitely keep in mind that 26 into downtown Columbia can get very backed up at times, especially if you're commuting during rush hour. And then Lexington is going to be closer to Columbia and more central for commuting, especially if you work along I-20 or near the airport. However, keep in mind that Lexington is also very large and very vast. So depending on where you live in Lexington, you could be a little bit of a distance away unless you live pretty close to I-20. If you live pretty close to I-20, then it's a pretty easy commute there, or close to Sunset, or close to Highway 1, because all three of those options will get you into downtown Columbia. So if you are someone that works in downtown Columbia, then Chapin may be a bit of a stretch for you, especially you're wanting an easy, shorter commute. If you work from home, or you maybe work in Irmo or Lexington, then that may be a good option for you. But if you work in downtown Columbia, that is a bit of a drive. Completely doable, but definitely something you want to take into consideration. And also, if you work in downtown Columbia, maybe being closer to the closer part of Lexington. That is definitely something that you want to take into consideration there as well. So kind of moving on to size and growth. Chapin, significantly smaller than Lexington. Significantly smaller than Lexington. So Lexington is going to be much larger. It is rapidly growing. It's full of new developments, neighborhoods, businesses, schools. They're very fastly growing. So size-wise, Lexington is very large, and it is everly increasing in population. But with that, you're going to get more retail stores. You're going to get more entertainment options. You're going to get closer to, shops and restaurants and things to do, parks, walking trails. Whereas Chapin is going to be a smaller town feel, but it is growing, but not quite as rapidly as Lexington is. But it is a slower growth, but growing. And you are still getting, new shops, new restaurants coming in. But a lot of what you're going to be like a lot of your retail shopping, a lot of your activities are not going to be in Chapin. You're going to have to travel into Irmo, or you're going to travel into Columbia or Lexington for a lot of those options, because Chapin still, while growing, has that smaller town feel to it. And it's more of like an everybody knows everybody type of town. Number three, we're going to talk about is schools. I can't go too far deep into this because I'm legally not allowed to say if schools are good or if schools are bad. In Chapin, District 5 schools are highly rated. They're smaller, they have a very strong reputation, and many people move to Chapin just for the schools. Whereas Lexington 1 schools are also highly rated, but they are much larger with more students and a broader options. So something to keep in mind there is the Chapin schools are smaller. However, Chapin schools are kind of exploding right now, where they're kind of getting into capacity. And the same with Lexington schools. I mean, it's just true. They're building more schools in Lexington because of how quickly the area is growing. So if you are considering a move to either of those areas, it's definitely something you want to keep in mind. Number 4, let's talk about Lake Murray lifestyle. So Chapin itself is called the capital of Lake Murray. So you're going to have some lake access, marinas, waterfront homes, and more of like a laid back lake lifestyle vibe. Whereas Lexington, there is also some lake access here, but it's going to be more like a suburban style, with like suburban style lake communities and newer developments, versus Chapin, which is going to be more established. And in Chapin, you're a lot closer to the Dreher Island State Park, which I think is a much better option if you're wanting to go swimming and fishing on Lake Murray. Whereas the Lake Murray side of the dam, I mean the Lexington side of the dam, is really your only option for swimming, public access, on the Lexington side. And I feel like Dreher Island is much larger and much more readily available for swimming and lake access than, say, the Lexington side is. I will say that neither one of them, besides like boat ramps, have a ton of just beach access for swimming. But definitely something that you want to keep in mind. Number 5, we're going to talk about kind of like housing and neighborhoods. Lexington, you're going to have a lot more variety. You're going to have a lot more variety just simply because it's a larger town. It is a much, much larger town. So you're going to have entry-level homes all the way up to large subdivisions and luxury lakefront, and a lot of new construction. In Chapin, you're going to have fewer like massive master plan community style subdivisions. You'll still have some, but you won't have near as many. You're going to see a lot more custom homes with bigger lots and generally higher price points if you're near the lake. But Chapin also has a lot of new construction as well. They're building a lot out in Chapin. So if you're looking for new construction, those two, I feel like you're getting, they're kind of neck and neck there for sure. So let's talk about traffic and accessibility. So Chapin is a smaller town, not smaller traffic. It's just not. I wish I could say it was, but the traffic's trafficking for sure. There's limited roadways. I-26, we kind of touched on that when we're talking about commute. It can be brutal if you're commuting. They're doing a lot of road construction in Chapin, and that is very confusing. Like, very confusing. And as someone that drives to Chapin pretty regularly, it can be very confusing. However, it is a smaller town, so there are less cars on the road, but I feel like it is still pretty congested. If you're coming from a large city, this does not apply. You're probably not even going to look at it and be like, that's a lot of traffic. But for a town the size of Chapin, it is a lot of traffic and it is a lot of congestion. Lexington, you're going to have a lot heavier local traffic, especially on 378 or Sunset Boulevard. But there are more road options available to you. So there's a lot of back roads you can take and then a lot of back ways that you can get places. Whereas I feel like with Chapin, you may not have that as easily accessible to you. Another thing we're going to talk about is like population and demographics. Is the demographics of Lexington and Chapin are very similar. You're going to have a lot of families in both. You're going to have a lot of like lower middle to upper middle class are going to live in both of these areas. This people that live in Chapin and the people that live in Lexington, they're very similar people. They're just kind of wanting a little bit different things when they're talking about their town. Whereas Chapin is going to be a little bit smaller. It's going to have a little more like little more charming feel to it. Kind of closer to what you would picture a small southern town to feel like. Whereas Lexington is going to have a lot more amenities. It's going to have a lot more things to do, but it's going to have a lot busier feel to it. So you're going to have a lot more traffic. You're going to have a lot more access to events and festivals. And if you live in Chapin, you can always drive to these. And some people prefer to do that. Some people prefer to live in Chapin and then commute to, you know, activities, commute to events and things like that, and not have to deal with, you know, the busyness of Lexington on a day-to-day. Whereas some people would prefer to live in Lexington and be close to, you know, all the action. I mean, a lot of the action's still in Columbia, but Lexington does have a lot going on as well. But I also find that Chapin has been like really pushing their events and their festivals and their things to do in their community feel a lot more in recent years. And I do think that that's going to steadily increase. But I also seen the same thing for Lexington, where they're really honing in into that family focus. And I think that can be said for both Lexington and Chapin, where they're very family focused and they're really wanting to build the community with families in mind. One other thing I want to mention that can be said really about Lexington and Chapin, because they're both very quickly growing communities, they suffer from lack of infrastructure. And because the infrastructure is so far behind, that is definitely something you need to keep in mind. Like I mentioned, there's road construction, there's new schools coming. They need to hire more firefighters and EMTs and police and things like that. And that takes time. That takes a lot of time. So you need to keep that in the back of your head when you are considering a move here, because it can be something that can be frustrating if you are moving there with the expectation that the infrastructure is there and it's just not. And it could be some years before we see that infrastructure improve. So just kind of weigh your pros and cons. Lexington and Chapin are something that I hear all the time. People always ask me, which one do I pick? And it's a vast difference, even though the same type of people live there, which is mostly families in the lower to upper middle class. And that is a very similar demographic, but they're wanting two very different things. So what may be a good option for one client of mine may not be the best option for another client of mine. So there is no blanket one size fit all answer here. There's just not. So if you are considering a move to Lexington, which one feels more like a move to Lexington or Chapin, which one feels more like home to you, Lexington or Chapin? Tell me down in the comments below. I always love to hear your thoughts and your opinions. But until next time, I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.